As we go to a time of prayer this morning, I want us to, again, this week I'd like us to remember our missionaries. And we have three that we're praying for specifically in our prayer list. But I know that you probably know other missionaries that are in difficult spots, that are hard places. Maybe even their life is in danger that we need to pray for. And so as we pray, we're going to remember them in prayer. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, I come before you on behalf of the missionaries around the world. Their calling has taken them to places where your enemy defeats and defends and defends it with fierceness. Your enemy targets them because they seek to lead the lost to salvation. Please protect them against the invisible enemy with your mighty arm. For the sake of those who will believe, teach them how to fight the spiritual battles and stand their ground. Lord, we ask that you be their shield. Be with Sam and Melissa in Ukraine. Be with Toby and Katrina in New Guinea. And be with Noel and Corey as they go to Poland. And Lord, we ask you to guard them and shield them. And it's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen. In Psalm 96, 1 through 2, we read, "Sing to the Lord, all the earth. Sing to the Lord. Praise his name. Shout to the Lord."
Like Well, that was good. How y'all doing this morning? That's nice. That's nice. It's good to see you. Appreciate you coming and being here. I know yesterday was some big games, no doubt about it. Boy, we had a big one Friday night. Homecoming at Slocum, and New Brockton came to town. And my goodness, it's always a good game when you win. And we have a grandson that plays on the line on defense, and it's so wonderful. You grandparents know what I'm talking about. To hear the name Ward called out over the speaker a bunch of times. I was so proud of him. I think he played his best game Friday night. I'm just so thankful for him. Then we have a granddaughter that's going to be in the Peanut this coming weekend. I will be so glad. I want to get past this. Oh my goodness. Anyway, we're going to continue what we talked about last week. I think what I'm going to do, go ahead and look up Matthew 24. And when you find Matthew 24, go ahead and turn back to those scriptures that I've got up on the top. But I think probably the best way to start this would be to read Matthew 24 and verse 3. We've been talking about the coming of Christ. And I may repeat this at the end of the message, but I'm doing this because I want to go on record in heaven that I preach about this. You know, the Bible encourages us to watch for his coming, to teach it, to preach it, to sing it. And I want to go on record in heaven, as for me personally, that I did this. Not just today. I've done it numerous of times. I enjoy this so much. I don't know all the answers, but I enjoy touching on these things. Let's read Matthew 24, verse 3. When they were sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to Jesus, and the word there in verse 3 is privately. And they said to him, "Tell us, what shall these things be? What shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world?" Last Sunday, I brought out the fact that signs were so important to these people. Signs were so important to the disciples. This is why they were asking Jesus, what are the signs? What are the signs? They understood that there were signs in the Old Testament about his first coming. I gave you some examples, last week, what you could see. There are signs in the Old Testament, prophecies in the Old Testament that taught about the coming of Jesus the first time, being born of a virgin, being born in Bethlehem, even dying on the cross, even the 30 pieces of silver, on and on and on. These disciples, they knew that there were prophecies in the Old Testament concerning the first coming of Jesus Christ. This is why here in verse 3 of chapter 24, this is why they're asking him, okay, we get it. Now, what are the signs of your second coming? What are the signs of the end of the world? And so we started last week looking at the signs that we find in the Bible. If you go to you're in chapter 24 of Matthew. If you go to verse 33, Jesus is teaching here in this verse that by the signs you can tell that it's near. It's close. We don't know how close. We don't know how near. I don't know. I would not even dare to tell you. But Jesus is teaching in verse 33 that by the signs you will know that the time is near. We started off looking at these signs in the Bible. The first one was the moral state of the world. And I told you that the Bible is teaching, consistently teaches that before the coming of the Lord, there will be a complete collapse of morality in the world. In fact, Jesus compared it to the days of Noah. He compared it to the days of Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot and Sodom. He compared it to these times when the morals completely collapse, so to speak. And Jesus is teaching consistently that before his return, there would be a collapse of morals in the world. The second one that we looked at last week was the mental state of the world. And we brought out, I believe it was in Luke, that Jesus said that upon the earth there would be distress of nations with perplexity. And the word distress means pressure and being tossed. Stress, pressure. Does that ring a bell for today? My goodness, I've never seen so much stress and pressure. The pandemic has pushed us to a new level in our society. The pressure, the stress. And then he said perplexity will avail in the last days before his second coming. This word perplexity simply means that there's no way out. We're going to reach a point in mankind. There seems to be no way out. You tell me what is the way out. Well, the only way that we know as believers is Jesus. There's another verse I want you to pay attention about the mental state of the world that I didn't bring out last Sunday. Go to Matthew 24 and verse 7, if you wouldn't mind doing that for me. In Matthew 24 and verse 7, Jesus said here, "For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines, pestilence, and earthquakes in divers places." Look at the word pestilence. That word in the original language hints to the pandemic. Epidemics, pandemics, epidemics, pandemics, pestilence. It's almost connected to the word of the plagues in the Old Testament when Moses was in Egypt. Because of this, there will be great distress and perplexity, the mental state. And listen to me, people are on the edge today. I mean, they're on the edge. It's almost like, what is going to be next? Y'all, I don't want to be a pessimist, but I'm beginning to feel and wonder, we get over this, what's going to come next? There can be something else. There could be something else. I don't know. I hope not. I'm so fed up with it. All right, let's start afresh. Let's go to number 3. This is the third sign that I have here. This is in Daniel chapter 12 and verse 4. I call this the technological state of the world. This is the third sign before he returns. In Daniel chapter 12 and verse 4, the last part of that, it says, "And knowledge shall be increased." I want you to get the flavor of this verse. Daniel here is prophesying the last days. Now, Daniel can be compared to Revelation. We can do it. It's easy to do. Most of you theologians will do this. Daniel, Revelation. Here in Daniel, he is prophesying about the last days. I tell you what, this is as plain as the nose on your face. He says, before the end of time, there will be an increase of knowledge. Now, I'm going to make a statement. In fact, I'm going to read it to you because I want to make sure I get every word of it. I want you to listen to this. Our world has advanced more in the last 100 years than in all of mankind. Think about that. Our world. Last 100 years, more than all of mankind. Y'all, I'm telling you, it doesn't take a genius to figure that one out. That'll put chill bumps on you. You think about this. In the last 10 years, we have just seen unbelievable technological advances. Just 10 years, the last 10 years. Y'all, when Charlotte and I were in New York and spent all those years in New York, I didn't have a cell phone because you couldn't buy one. They didn't exist. I didn't have a personal computer. None of those things. GPS came into play after the Iraq and all that stuff that happened in the Middle East. It's incredible the advances that we're making. You go buy a cell phone now, you're going to need a new one shortly. You go buy a computer now, you're going to need a new one. You go buy a car, you're going to need a new one. I'm not, but Jesus said in Matthew 24, he said, when you see all these things, recognize that it's near. Number 4, this is the last one. I only had 4. The moral, the mental, the technological, and now number 4, the evangelism state of the world. Go back to Matthew 24 and verse 14. Jesus said in Matthew 24 and verse 14, and this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations. And then the end will come. And then, in the original language, it's like, and then it's going to happen. For the first time in the history of mankind, because of the technological advances that we have made, because of the satellite, because of the computer, because of internet, listen to me, the gospel can be heard around the world. Someone can be in the deepest part of the jungle if they have a computer, if they have a smartphone, if they're able to get a signal. The gospel can be heard for the first time in 2021. The gospel is being taught and preached all over the world. There's not a place that cannot hear. Jesus says in Matthew 24:14, and then shall the end come. Wow. We're living in that day, aren't we? He said in verse 33 back in 24 Matthew, when you see all these things, recognize that it is near. And in verse 33, when he says it is near, this is really what he's saying. It is at the door. All right, let's move on to the next section. And let's go to Acts chapter 1 and 1 Thessalonians. Let's see, we're going to talk about the things that you need to know about the second coming. What do you need to know about the second coming? Let's talk about this morning, and I hope I've got these organized for you so that you can keep up. But what are the things that you really need to know? Now, let me go ahead and tell you. I'm going to mention the tribulation in just a second. But listen, there's a lot of stuff you don't need to know. There's a lot of stuff you don't need to worry about. And I'm going to try to emphasize that. So let's just talk about the things that you need to know about his coming. Let's start with number one. Number one in Acts chapter 1, verse 11. His coming will be personal. If it's not Jesus, I don't want it. His coming will be personal. Look at verse 11. I love this verse, the way it puts it. He says in verse 11, which also said, ye men of Galilee. This is the angels that's talking to the disciples when Jesus ascended. He ascended, went straight up in the air. Literally, y'all, straight up. In verse 11, the angels was trying to explain it to the disciples. They said, this same Jesus which is taken up from you into heaven shall so come in like manner as you've seen him go into heaven. In other words, look at it, this same Jesus will return. That's what they're saying in verse 11. This same Jesus will return. His going away was personal. When they stood on that place where he ascended, it was personal. He went straight up. He disappeared. I can only imagine. His return will be the same way. It'll be personal. Flip over to 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 and verse 16. You need to see this for yourself. I'll give you a second. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 and verse 16. It says, for the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout. That is 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 and verse 16. Now let me ask you, what do you see in that verse that indicates that Jesus' return is personal? Look at the word himself. For the Lord himself shall descend. That word himself, if you could look at it in the original language, it's almost like somebody underlined that word and then underlined that word and then underlined the word himself. Himself. The Lord himself. First thing you need to know about the second coming, but it is personal. It's going to be all about him. Our oldest son joined the Army. He was a tanker. And the Army recruited him because he was so short. And he could operate in that tank without bumping his head. And he was pretty good. I'll never forget when TJ called us and said, Dad, I'm coming home. And I'll see you soon. His coming was personal, just like his leaving was personal. When TJ left us with his family, oh, it just tore us out of the frame. Can any of you identify with that? It just tore us out of the frame. Kind of like these disciples, when Jesus ascended and left, it just tore them out of their frame. But when TJ came back, he came back the way he went. And it was so good to see him. Look at this. Jesus says, I am coming and I will come in person. We are looking for a personal appearance of Jesus. That's what you need to know when you think about the second coming of Jesus. All right, let's look at the second thing up there. It says it will be sudden. His coming will be sudden. The Bible teaches this in Matthew 24:44. I believe that's the verse. It says, in such an hour as you think not, the Son of Man cometh. Is that right? Let me make sure. No, that's not right, is it? No, I said 44. I'm sorry. There it is. I got it. In such an hour as you think not, the Son of Man cometh. It's going to be sudden. It's going to be like, it's over. It's done. The Bible teaches the flood. Noah, in his expectation of the flood, built the ark, and he preached for over 100 years. And the people just kept on living and kept on dying and kept on. They didn't really believe Noah. And Noah just kept on building and kept on preaching. And all of a sudden, it happened. I have a feeling it's going to be exactly that way. I believe we're closer than we've ever been. We're closer than we've ever been because people just don't care. I think they don't care. A lot of them. They don't care one way or the other. Don't believe it. I think, according to the Bible, the Lord's coming is going to be absolutely... You ever been caught off guard? I don't like being caught off guard. Something that just blindsides you. But this shouldn't if you're a believer. It shouldn't. But it's going to be sudden. It's going to happen so quickly. So quickly. It will be sudden. The third thing that you need to know about the second coming of Jesus, and this is the one that's really... Well, let's go down to number 4. I'm going to come back and do number 3. Number 4, this is one of the four things that you need to know about the second coming. And this is where it's confusing to a lot of people. The second coming will be twofold. The first one will be in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 16. If you have your Bible, please look at that. I'm not going to try to explain it. Let me just tell you. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 16, it's teaching about the rapture. Everybody has heard about the rapture. It teaches here in verse 16 that he will come first in the air. He will not stop here on the earth. He will stop somewhere out there, up there, out there, up there. The Bible teaches that at this time the dead in Christ shall rise. It doesn't matter where they are, ocean, burned up somewhere, it doesn't matter. The dead in Christ, they will rise first to meet the Lord in the air. And then it teaches that we, all living Christians, whether you're in church or whether you're at home or whether you're at a ball game or whether you're somewhere that you don't really need to be, it don't matter. It doesn't matter. It's going to happen. Listen, it's going to take place. You better make sure things are right between you and the Lord. When it happens, it says living Christians will be caught up in the air together. We will be transformed in the twinkling of an eye. Our bodies, everything about us will be transformed, will be made like Christ, will move to heaven. That's the rapture. The Bible also teaches because of that, everybody that's left here on this earth is called the tribulation. Some people believe that Christians will have to go through the tribulation. Some Christians believe that you'll have to go through the first 3.5 years and so forth. I ain't going to be here. Y'all understand? I'm not going to be here. The tribulation is going to be so bad on this earth when the rapture takes place, I wouldn't want to be here. It's going to be terrible. It's going to be the worst thing that this world has ever known. Then the Bible teaches that at the end of the tribulation, then you have the coming the physical coming of the coming of the Lord Jesus. That's why 1 Thessalonians says that he will descend, or not 1 Thessalonians, but the Bible teaches he will descend to the earth in glory after the tribulation, bringing his people with him, destroy the Antichrist, and so forth and so forth. I'm going to stop right there with the tribulation. We could spend time upon time and upon time. Everybody has their opinion. I will tell you this, if you come up to me and say, well, I don't believe that part, I believe this, I promise you, I will respect your opinion. I hope you know me by now. I don't try to prove my point. I won't never try to prove my point. Respect my opinion. I respect your opinion. The only thing you really need to know about the second coming of Jesus is the fact that you're ready. The Lord will take care of everything else. I'm not worried about it. Let's go back, or go on to back to number 3, and we'll close out with this. The third thing, well, actually it's the fourth thing, but actually it's the third thing. It's on the screen. No one knows the exact time. I call people who preach it, teach it, and says it, I call them time setters. Time setters. These are individuals that try to say, it's going to be this time, that time. I knew of one guy, I told you this last week, I knew of one guy that led a bunch of people to sell their homes, sell their property, get rid of everything, and meet him at a certain place because Jesus will be coming. Guess what? He didn't come. Time setters are wrong. I don't care who you're listening to on TV. You can have all the respect in the world for him. If he's a time setter, he's wrong. If Teddy Ward did this, I'm wrong. If anyone else did this, they're wrong. Not only are we wrong, but y'all, we don't have the authority to do it. In Mark 13 it says, but of the day and hour knoweth no man, no not the angels which are in heaven, neither the Son, but the Father. If I understand that right, angels don't know, Son doesn't know. The Father is the only one that knows. That's a little complicated, I understand, but I believe it the way it says it. No one knows. We cannot and should not tamper with God's timetable. Back in Acts it says, it is not for you to know the times. In verse 7 of Acts chapter 1, it's not for you to know the times or the seasons which the Father hath put in his own power. He may come before I get done. And it wouldn't bother me not one little bit. I've always said that would be the most glorious experience, be preaching about it, and it happens. He may not come for another 100 years. The point is, we don't know. I don't know. I want to close by giving you 4 quick blessings of his coming. There's 4 quick blessings from his coming. Do y'all see that on the screen? Number 1, we'll be taken out of this world. You know, there's people today who don't want this. They're too much in love with their money, too much in love with the material. Now, y'all, I love my kids. I love my family. I love my place down in Fayette. I love all this stuff. I love my car. I won't mind not one bit. Taken out of this world. Y'all have any aches and pains? I told Charlotte the other day, you're getting this close to the nursing home. You need to perk it up a little bit. The second blessing about the second coming, we will be transformed. It teaches in 2 Corinthians that we will be changed in the twinkling of an eye, transformed into a body, something of the Lord, something that will never hurt, never have to cry, never be sad, never be depressed, never be down. Transformed. That's a blessing. The third blessing, we'll have a reunion. Many of you that are here today, you've had to stand by the bed of your loved one. Many of you that are here today, you've had to kiss your loved one bye on this earth. Many of you here today have had to stand by the casket of your loved one. Hardest thing you've ever done in your life. For a number of years, I preached funerals from the head because I had never really lost anyone. I didn't know what it was like. But when I began to lose Mama and Daddy and everybody else, all of a sudden now, when I do a funeral, I do it from my heart. I know what it's like to stand by that casket. Many of you have done that. Many of you know what it's like to go home and have to face that empty chair. Look at number 3. That's a benefit. That's a blessing of the coming of the Lord. We'll be reunited. Y'all, I don't have to tell you this, but death is the great separator. Oh my goodness, it just hurts so bad. No matter how much we believe, it is the greatest separator. But I'm telling you today, the Lord is the greatest reconciler. He enjoys putting the families back together. I believe that's going to be one of his happiest ministry in heaven, reuniting families. Reunion. Last but not least is number 4. And that's okay. I'm pulling this out of midair. I wrote it down when I was coming over here. Number 4, the sweetest, highest service. So number 1, taken out of this world. Number 2, you're going to be transformed. Number 3, reunion. Number 4, the sweetest and the highest service. What do I mean by that? Y'all, we have limitations today. You can only work for just so many hours. You can only go for just so many hours. You got to have some sleep. You can try to be a Mr. Tough guy and say, I don't need but 3 or 4 hours of sleep. Buddy, it'll catch up with you. We all have limitations. I enjoy working on my little place there in Fayette. I will work and clean and cut and pick up and carry off. I love it. But there's times I will run out of gas. And the older I'm getting, the tank is getting empty. I will run out of gas. when you're in heaven, when you're with the Lord, we're gonna experience the sweetest and the highest service of all. It'll be so fulfilling because you'll never get tired. You'll never be limited. You'll be able to do what you need to do in heaven. Whatever God has called us to do there, you'll be able to do it with purpose, with a reward. Let's close in prayer. Father, take your word and use it to encourage our hearts. Lord, I pray for those that are here this morning. They need encouragement of some kind. Encourage their hearts. Thank you for reminding us of a powerful truth. It doesn't matter if it's going to be another 100 years. I mean, that's up to you, Lord. It's whatever would please you. If it's another 100 years, that's fine. But thank you that we have the opportunity to preach it, to teach it, talk about it, act like it's going to happen today. This is what I think that you want us to do. You want us to live every day with this hope and with this expectation. Bless your message today. Minister to the hearts that are sitting here today. I have no clue what they need, but you do. And Lord, you've called me. You've called me to preach. And Lord, I've done the best job I can do. And I pray that you'll take it and use it. In Jesus' name, amen.